Unmuted. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Literary Hour. It's a little bit windy here, so I might go in and out, but my trusty co-host, Professor K. Moses Nagbe, is here as always to buttress me if I disappear. Hi, Prof.
Hey, Jackie, it's refreshing seeing you again.
Yep.
How you
After
doing?
last week. Yes, it's good to see you, Prof.
Yeah.
Yeah. And today we are honored to have with us one of our own, Mr. Kai G. Wleh. Good evening, Mr. Wleh.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. And for those of you, the unfortunate few who don't know that Mr. Wleh wrote a book, here is the book. It's called Liberty Hijacked. It's right here. And I can see, okay, it's right there. Am I, there's a,
Cool.
there's a feedback a little bit. So that is the book that we are going to be discussing today. We're going to talk to Mr. Wleh, find out his motivation for writing the book, get to know about the book, and we urge you to please purchase the book. Those of you who have not already, is on Amazon. I put the link there, so get a copy. This is like a historical Bible, I call it. So don't forget, get this book and join the conversation. Okay, we'll start by introducing Mr. Wleh. Prof, do you want to do the honors or should I?
Take that and then I'll come back.
Okay. Kai G. Wleh is an award-winning journalist with over 40 years of experience in the media and public service. He is widely read and well acknowledged and knowledgeable about Liberian history and the country's political system. He studied extensively with several graduate and professional diplomas and certificates, in addition to completing graduate studies at Trinity Catholic University, Washington University, University of Alabama, and St. Joseph's Catholic University, earning 3 graduate degrees in public affairs, promotion, and applied. He is currently pursuing a PhD program in public policy at Liberty University. He is an acclaimed journalist who worked through the media from a reporter to editor-in-chief of various Liberian media institutions, including Sun Times, the Weekly Sun, and the Standard newspapers. He extensively covered Liberian, African, and global issues and brings his excellent, effective, critical, and analytical writing in this new book, Liberty Hijacked, as we previously mentioned. In Liberty Hijacked, he comprehensively, analytically, systematically takes on the origin and history of the divisions between the settler ruling class and the indigenous people of Liberia. He unveils the tragedy of the slave trade and the hidden intent of the American colonization society, the repatriation movement, and the role of some Christian churches in keeping Liberia divided. He provides numerous examples and craftily utilizes a broader methodology that uncovers most of the Liberia's hidden and forgotten history from the settlement to the Tubman rule. As we said earlier, we are honored to have you and we welcome you, Mr. Wleh.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here.
Yes, yes. I've been reading this book. I couldn't put it down. I kept saying to Prof, we need more time with him. We need more time with him because this is really a historical document backed by so many letters, by so many primary sources that, you know, I went to the back of the book. I'm like, where did he get all these? Where did he get all these? It's methodical in its sources, in saying, I didn't make this up. I have sources to back up my whatever I have in this book. So we'll begin, I guess, from the beginning and ask you, why this book? Why now? Why did you decide to write Liberty Hijacked?
Thank you so much. I think you and Prof are my inspiration. I come from a background from a village in Sanquin. I did not grow up in the city. I spent my entire life in the village between two groups of families. My settler family, the Roberts, who in the boat rescued my dad from going to the Fanani Pool. Senator James Roberts at the time. And so I would visit and go to Greenville, and they would call me Joseph Roberts, because folks do not want to call Wleh. Then when I go back to the village, I'm Wleh. So I saw the contradictions and I saw the division as I came to grow up. I grew up in Sanquin, where under James E. Green had electricity, and the rest of us were sleeping in the darkness. And so I begin to see poverty at first step. I walk an hour and a half from Sanquin to Pinetown, where we have our elementary school at the time. And I made references to the same thing in Buchanan in Grand Bassa County for schools in Sino. It was difficult. Of the 500 kids that grew up in Sanquin, 3 of us were over to obtain bachelor degrees. That's my Butu Vladimir, my nephew, my cousin Justin Jaleba, and myself. Only 3 of us. But when I entered the University of Liberia as well, before that time, I got in student politics at the Bishop Judah Cagley High School. I was in the YCS, and the YCS taught me to see, investigate, and act. The question of what will Yahweh do? What will Jesus do when there are injustices? We revitalized the Liberian National Student Union LISU when I was a student leader from Bishop Judah High School. We went to Cottington, and he later my colleague coming to WISEP in 1979. I joined Moja because of the intellectual basis. They helped me to read critical literatures, to argue with authors. And I have Sister Petrilina when I was in high school, who told me anytime you pick out a book, read the introduction, read the preface, and read the bibliography. You will see who the author depends upon. So as I went to the University of Liberia, and I saw the likes of K. Mose Nagbe, a young man at the time coming from graduate school. He was still here in the United States and make a lot of money. But he returned home. And I would see him with all the books on his arm, going to law school at the same time. When Prof was teaching, you want to stand and listen, even whether you register in that class or not. I had Professor Wleh, who taught me English as well. I had Dr. Kreku, who taught me English as well. I studied under Dr. Sayegh, Professor Steve Jube, Dr. Barr, who taught me history and who made me to draw to history. So I began to see myself and said, if the likes of men that I was on the boat, the sinking ship, with Professor Nagbe. When we got in Ghana, while folks were running for food, calling folks in the United States to get them money and food, Professor Nagbe was writing about the tragedy of the sinking boat. He showed me a manuscript. God, this is what I've written about Liberia. I got encouraged. I read Dr. Guanu. I read Dr. Sangawlo. And I began to say, what would be my contribution? We criticize too much. But what can we do? The change we're talking about, you say, why did I read this book? The change we're talking about, change has come. I spoke to a professor who said, the change is overdue. This book is overdue. Because I grew up reading Matera Nipo, Susanna Lewis, Banks Henrys, the hero and heroines of Liberia. And I felt the history was empty. They were not telling us the history of our country. They were giving us metal music and melodrama. So I had an opportunity with all the times I spent at sometimes. I wrote a story against Samuel Doe about the Sayegh University in Grand Cape County. I was then working as a cadet at the Ministry of Posts. And at the same time working with Sometimes, thanks to Sylvester Brisbane, who gave me the opportunity to work with him. Before that, Councillor Chia Chipo, who trusted me to be editor-in-chief of the Standard newspaper. I was asking critical questions. But I see today what has happened in 1955. in the 1955 elections. It's happening now. Because we are unaware. So we want to bear the torch that kept most of the Nagbe auto lighted when they were young. We can't be selfish with our knowledge. And I decided to say, when Doe invited me, when I wrote the story, Grand Kill My Country University abandoned, Doe was angry. He sent for me through Wleh, who is now in Maryland. Said, the president want to see you. I don't know him at the time personally. I knew him from Grand Jude. And I grew up in Grand Jude, but I'm from Sino. So I told Mabudu Nyepan, the president wants to see me because I always consult. If he arrests me and put me in jail, go call my dad. He was a heavy chief in San Juan. He was a member of the Masonic Temple, a grandmaster. And when Mr. Doe saw me, he said, you write well. I don't say he belonged to Moja. He had done all the research. But I want to have me be my speech writer. I said, Mr. President, that's a big job. I need to think about it. I need to consult my colleagues. I always consulted my dad. I ran to San Juan. And the president said, and my dad said, that's an opportunity to put the perspective of the student views in President Doe here. I came back like September, and Doe said, I have Murray Douglas at the Ministry of Post. I don't say you are a cadet. I said, yes. He said, I want you to be Director of Public Affairs. I said, thank you. So while working in the Doe government, I got in touch with, I started reading The Law of Liberty by Tuan. And I saw the tragedy. So I wanted to talk to John Ramsey, who was then press secretary to William V.S. Tubman. I befriended him. He was my boss in the mansion. And I said, I want to read my own book. He said, why you want to read a book? I said, I want to read a book. So we started building confidence because I was from Moja. And they were afraid to just take me in. This kid is from Moja. They said Moja were terrorists. Moja folks were undermining government. But I showed him I wanted to read my own book. He opened a library to me. And that's when he informed me about the deception of the Liberian media. It's in that book. He said we fooled the Liberian people. When Tubman was at the point of death, we say he was in Geneva when he was in London. And he called over us.
So that's the power of the media. And when you were at the university, did you start off being a journalist? Did you do communications, or did you find your career path after the university?
When I was at the university, I did sociology. By the time the mass communication department had not come.
Okay, so I see that you were one of the founders of the student integration movement.
Yes.
Sim. Yes. We were all members of that. So how did that come about that you helped to organize SIM and not join SUB?
I was member of SUB because I was member of Moja.
Okay.
But I saw the contradiction where our colleagues felt they have monopoly over everything. You can't take people for granted. I was feature editor of this university spokesman. And when I write my story, they say we're too liberal, we're too radical. And I said, I want to be a pragmatist. So I began to consult with my peers. We recruited Louis Brown, TF faculty. They came from St. Patrick's. My folks from Tubman High, Fale, Nyeswa. We brought them in to fit about Betty. And we decided to force him.
And you thank a lot of people, in your acknowledgments, there are a lot of people that you name, that you thank them for mentorship, for helping you to find your North Star, as I call it. Yeah. So Prof, you want to jump in and ask Mr. Wleh?
Yeah, I think, okay, he's laid out the motivations, which to a large extent have kind of strengthened that will strengthen one's interest in the book. But I just want to a kind of come from a different dimension here. We said the book is Liberty Hijacked. If we were to kind of poke your side a little, in one or two words, why would you say, or what would you say hijack liberty really? I know the who, the politician, but as far as the vices are concerned, what do you think hijack liberty in Liberia?
The exclusion and
Exclusion?
incursion.
Okay.
They
All right.
found body politics.
Okay.
If you look at chapter 1 and chapter 2, the
Yeah.
repatriation movement
Yeah.
said, we are going to build a state, liberty for all,
Yeah.
to be inclusive,
Yeah.
because we do not want a slave plantation behavior. They arrived in Monrovia. They said they bought a land from Chief Boswell, from Bob Gray. But they were not smart, Prof. When they created a Declaration of Independence, folks who are lawyers, land law, when you buy a piece of land from a given family and you want to develop that land, you invite your neighbors. They never invited Bob Gray. They never invited Chief Boswell. They never said Chief Boswell or Bob Gray were dead before the Declaration. So the people were generous to you. Why did you exclude them? If you look at the preamble as well, Prof, they said we hate America. We want to build a perfect union. But in that same document, they said we will take the resources for ourselves. They were not using plural we, for ourselves. Those of all came from abroad.
Mhm.
So the exclusion and suppressive laws that follow,
Yeah.
and the seizure of land.
Mhm. One of which you talk about,
Hijack.
which has to do with the Land Act of the 1800s, and then of course strengthened in the 1900s.
Yes, the Land Act
Yeah.
of 1850.
Yeah.
They said they bought the land. But in
1850.
1850,
So
Yeah.
3 years.
later, they created a law that all tribal lands are settlers' land.
Mm.
And I try to be very careful not to use the difficulties of those who came to our country or who came to join us. So I never used the word Congo in that book, because it's like telling somebody, the guy who was canceled. They were suppressed. They were recaptured, enslaved people. They came home. And according to Honorable Kai Father, who I interviewed for this book, he said, we embrace them. But it's time to decide to destroy our religion, our culture, and take our land. So we will fight. So then they hijacked the liberty right there. Liberty for all. But now it became a liberty for few by 1850. So you can't say it's liberty for the few.
So in the book, you focus on the agents and elements of exclusion. So they are education, politics, social relations, things that were strengthened under certain presidents to be able to make it so that the two groups cannot come together. While staying on the Land Act, I mean, I didn't know that the 1850, 3 years after independence, that the indigenous people, not only were all the lands considered public land, the indigenous people could only have 25 acres, and they could not have commercial farms. They could not use it for commercial. But in this chapter 29, there's a list of people who got land, and I'm thinking, okay, based on political patronage, they got the land. And of course, the indigenous people were not passive. Were not passive in this. They spoke out, like the chief in Salala. He spoke out. These people had the indigenous resistance all ready to fight back through the laws, but the laws themselves were not in their favor.
It will not be in their favor.
So yes, especially the survey act, when they go to survey the land, right? So I guess my question is, with all and I'll come back to Prof, but specifically with the land issue, that land under Tubman was passed out to friends and cronies. Who of, as you say, hijacked in this, and this book is, I guess, a warning, and it's also saying nothing has changed over the years. You know,
Indeed.
there are still things that are happening. Yeah. So I guess my question is, what, in writing this book, are you saying that these things have happened, but now we should look at this Land Act and right the wrongs? Or are you saying that, okay, it's happened and now we're moving on?
No, we can move on. Because what I'm writing, Prof, is not to write an integrated history. You see, Prof taught us to distinguish fact from fiction, to distinguish our opinion. Editorial writings are opinion, but academic work are facts. So we can't just walk away. The 1850 Act is still on the book. That gave trouble. This is why the food insecurity in our country. Emphasis was placed on planting rubber and coffee and cocoa and planting rice. The indigenous population was given 25 acres of land per entire clan. So the Wleh clan got 25 acres, but we do shifting cultivation. They call transitional farming. So for my whole family, and we were restricted, the natives were restricted from engaging in cash crops for selling anything. Make sure the food you bought, the farm you made, just made sufficient to eat. So it's not only that we had not to create an awareness, because our history must not be integrated. It must not be integrated. Those of you in academia, you talk about more comprehensive education, comprehensive history, so that what happened in our past are parallel with what went wrong as well. When the Crew people decided to fight for the land in 1869, from Harper to Riverside, was then called the Crew settlement. They have gone there not only to take the land, but to destroy the religion, referring to the religion as idiotic, blasphemy. And the Crew people said, we can't accept it. They did not want to end it. They blocked the sea. That the Crew tribe was the largest heroic tribe would not access the sea to get to fishing and get their daily needs. They said, we'll fight. So the churches came in and told them, do not fight for wealth, because they have already realized the settlers have repossessed all the tribal land. So they told the tribal people, you will go to heaven, but forget yourself. Don't get riches. Once you are poor, you will go to heaven. And people started clapping. Yeah, I'll go to heaven. I don't need to get rich. So what is psychology or theology? Forget yourself. Leave your mind, leave your power. Whether they get rich, they will not go to heaven. You will go to heaven. So they play on our ignorance to exploit. So what I'm saying here, the laws have not changed. What is happening in 1955 elections? People flipping from one political party to another. It happened in 1955. People calling themselves political leaders. That's not a job. Kwame voted against Tubman. Kwame and Tubman and Barclay were defeated. They said, okay, Kwame is our political leader. It's not a job. What the preamble said, political party has turned a barrel. After elections, it dissolves. But yeah, country now, everybody calling themselves political leader. They see in fights. It's in 1995, 1955. So what I'm saying here is that it's not only to reflect on what happened. They are testimony. They are letters. And I also review the annual report for 15 years of the American Colonization Society.
Yep.
I spent 10 years in Washington, D.C. when I was living there. Spending every 3 hours nearly every day to research the ACS. Their letters. So the purpose for which they came was not to build a state, but to accrue the wealth for themselves. So when you even look at education, a teacher in Harper was making $150 per month. A teacher in Calcutta was making $40 per month. Tubman gave $440,000 to build the Monroe Elementary Demonstration School. But he committed 141,000 to build three schools in Saniquere, Zozo, and Zwedru. Those schools were never built.
I guess one of the things that you touched on, well, one that I found very intriguing was the fact that in chapter 27, the fraternal orders and the churches, and you talk a lot about the churches and how the churches, they even use biblical passages and they justify political patronage. I mean, there was even I guess a pastor or bishop who would take his sermons to Tottenham for
Yes.
approval before he would preach it. So when we look at history, and Prof and I, we always talk about patterns. You're looking at patterns, and you're also looking at to determine whether it's accurate. You're cross-checking fair representation.
Triangulation, yes.
Yeah, but with the churches, I mean, nothing has changed. I find that the religious leaders in our country are even now more browbeaten and sycophantic than ever before. But with education, I think Prof wants to talk about the educational system and how systematically it was to because you say illiteracy was the tool of Tottenham. Tottenham
Yes.
used literacy to stay in power. Prof, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, in fact, what you all are talking about, which is very much important. Paul Gifford talked about the role of the church in the Dole-led government. I think religion, sadly, Western religion that's been introduced to Liberia, sadly has had in most instances, had an impact on the domineering attitude of the powers at the time. And this sadly, in fact, just a few months ago, there was one of these big religious leaders who was kind of raining curses on those who set up to what's his name to George Weah. You know, the more you talk about things concerning the progress of the country or the development of the country, the more a lot of those who were kowtowing to to the political leaders will tell you it's not your place. You know, touch not God's anointed. That became the phrase that was used in Tubman days, and in fact probably beyond that, which was at the time of Barclay and all those people, and that continues to this day. So the short of the long is that it is sad enough that even in academic matters, people have tried as much as possible to introduce the religious element, and in that context, try as much as possible to a kind of thaw the thinking, the critical thinking of people, and that's what comes out in your book there, George Paul Gifford. His book was called Christianity in Those Liberia, and even when you get to the Rubber Empire, which is another book that makes us reflect on what you are saying in here, that actually a lot of things have gone amok in our country there based on those who ought to have known better and yet did not make their voices heard.
Yes, probably because it has a history. When the American Colonization Society was founded as an NGO, it said the goal was to take black people from the United States who were nuisance to Africa. The churches felt offended. You can't call human being nuisance. They changed the preamble to create a home for the black people, where the church will have a place to Christianize them. So we are trying to create a Christian state. So in a Tubman regime, even my old church, a Methodist church, Bishop Estuan Nagbe, that I have in Abo, had a card that the government gave him, but he wanted a gift from President Tubman. The fact that he will be close to Tubman will be very important. So he lobbied Tubman for a car, a government fleet. Tubman gave it to him, and they had a big rally to honor Tubman. The sermon that was preached in that church was obey your government because the government represents God. anybody who opposes the government opposes God. So they created a deity of Tubman, making Tubman now the God. It did not only stop there. B.W. Harris, in whose name the B.W. High School on Broad Street name.
Yes.
Had to get his sermon
Yeah.
to Hammer to read, edit, and review by Tubman. And when he did that, he became a policy for other churches, including my own Catholic church. They will tell the government or the superintendent, "This is what I'm going to say next Sunday. I want your approval." So for the church then to become an agent of change, he became an agent of suppression. The Presbyterian Church went to Capamus. And what did they do? They told the people, anybody who believes in the native God will go to hell.
Yeah,
So people who believe in the churches begin to push in that way because they want to be close to the power. Even every church convention, Tubman has to be the guest speaker. Every church convention, whether he belongs to that church or not. So
I guess, Mr. Wleh, one of the things I would like for you to touch on is that the book centers heavily on Tubman. It talks about the American colonization society. It talks about the segregation policies that were enforced at the time. You touch on the fact that Talbot was also a willing accomplice. He was not just a standby. He was a willing accomplice, helping Tubman to carry out all of these undemocratic actions that he had. But I guess I would ask you to explain, why is this book so centered heavily on Tubman? Why did it center so heavily on Tubman? Yeah.
Tubman has a consequential influence on Liberian politics.
Okay.
It was on a time of Barclay time, the term of the presidential change between the two Barclays. But when Tubman got in, he changed the constitutional provision for presidency. So he did not only dominate the presidency, he dominated every life. But Tubman had an opportunity to change Liberia. And I said that in the book, Tubman brought in some of the most progressive policy, the integration policy, the land ownership for the natives, creating counties, bringing the natives into the body politics. But as soon as he started, he put a break on it. Because his advisor, Emma Hammer, has told him in the book, and based on documents. I'm not making it up.
Yeah.
If you bring the country, the natives in, they are limited. They do not have the capacity to think for themselves. To keep them in power, to keep yourself in power, is to make them to believe that they are part of the government. Behave like them. Put them in government. My uncle was representative, but he would just vote and raise his hand. He never told me one day he passed a bill. Why Richard Henry said? Richard Henry said yes. That's why I say yes. So they were there, but Tubman had an opportunity. It was under Tubman administration that Liberia has the largest investment, including Firestone. Tubman was a senator. Then he became a lawyer, a senator. He was a lawyer for Firestone. So when he became president, what they did, the Liberian people always said, "Oh, Firestone did not help Liberia. How would they help Liberia?" As soon as Firestone Tubman took over, they created a Liberian Firestone Incorporated. So the Firestone you have in Liberia is not an American company; it's a Liberian business. They said, "Okay, we'll buy your assets." So Tubman made Firestone a Liberian business with international shareholders. So Tubman policies on education, for example, education in Capamus. The budget for the school system in Capamus was $246, including salary, teaching materials. But the budget for BWI for teacher was $40, but the total budget was like $8,000 a month. It's in the book. So I was focusing on Tubman because that's the man we know up to our time. Up to our time, I know your radio band carry all the presidents. But all of the president were there for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. This guy spent 27 years. It was at a time, one author said, growth without development. When Liberia had all of the businesses they needed, without resources, were exploited. So what we did was to exclude the natives. We gave them power, but hold development away from them. It was the advice from Amahama. And we know him. He was in the government election commission chair. So Thurman listened. Because Thurman created 2 Liberia. He called himself a native man. Because he wanted a native backing. And they said the Mario class. So he created a divide. Up to today, we see Monrovia, we see the natives. Development has not gone to the interior. You don't blame one president. I was in the Doe government. Road could not reach the Zwadru. Today, no road in Zwadru. No road in the southeast, in most of the southeast. Even the coastal highway we're talking about today, it was a Thurman project to win election in 1955. I will make a coastal highway. It's in the book. I'll make a coastal highway. So you don't need to pass through Nima to go to Sino. You pass through Riverside, and you are in Sino. People started clapping. We want Thurman. When he got elected, what happened? Nothing happened. So he was in power for 27 years.
Okay, yeah.
So the burden was on him because he came as an opposition politician, as a poor man lawyer.
I think one of the things that really startled me in the book is how his presidency and he as a president permeated every aspect of the country. So you say that he reserved the right to hire and fire teachers.
Yes.
And we've seen that with Albert Port. He did that with Albert Port. And you said that even when it came to the Masonic Temple, he demanded that the ambassadors, each ambassador, Liberian ambassador, pay $20,000 to build the Masonic Temple, which cost $800,000 at the time.
Yes.
Another thing that really, I laughed because I was like, nothing has changed, is that even he put pressure on the business people because Rasami Brothers gave money. I was like, oh, they were here at the time. But I guess, I don't want to give anything away from the book, but I guess you're right when you say that giving the length of his tenure in office, he could have done so much. And one of the things I found really sad was, again, giving scholarships to those who were in power, their children, sending them abroad, even when universities in the United States and other places say these students are not prepared. They were still giving it to them, not to the indigenous, so reading this book is almost like, have we not learned anything? That's how I feel reading this book. Prof, what do you think?
And that statement you made, which has to do, or the question that have we not learned anything? I guess the answer is yes, and it is yes because this kind of penetrating way of looking at our history has not been done by local writers. Local writers, meaning that for a long time, unless historians from abroad a kind of studied several themes in our history and wrote about them, that was the end of it. It was probably in recent times, the likes of Joseph Guano and a few others have been coming to the aid of making sure that we understand what has really taken deep roots in our country as far as the history is concerned. And that is why for some time, Mr. Wleh's book is going to be one of those to kind of study meticulously and see what to find and see how we move forward. It is like a kind of searching the conscience of those who are referred to as the intelligentsia or what have you, to make sure that research and writing becomes a very significant aspect of our lives moving forward. We have been told in no uncertain terms that well, things were going a little, even the Tubman thing, where people say, well, the man, it looks like he meant well, but others, actually, if you mean well, you mean well. If you mean well, you mean well. And if there's going to be a way of getting around some nefarious advice and what have you, I think someone who means well ought to be able to kind of avert any such bad advice. Unfortunately, it didn't happen in the case of Tubman. You know, all they wanted to do was to demonstrate a sense of entitlement. All they wanted to do was to ensure that they dominated in the political culture of Liberia and maybe get the rewards a kind of selfishly. And until these things are dealt, that's why I appreciate the fact that, especially in the last chapter, he talked about a new breed of consciousness. That new breed of consciousness has to awaken in the country, and people should not play around with it or pay lip service to it. They have to really get to work to make sure that they fully understand what's going on in our country. And people need to also understand that, hey, this is not to carry on a culture of divisiveness, but to talk about those aspects, that kind of ruin the progress of our country, that made it possible for people to be insensitive to what they are doing and what have you. There has to be a new awakening in the country. There has to be a new awakening in the country that will make a difference as we progress in the 21st century.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. On the level of education, what the Tubman government did was, and I'm grateful to the Cornell University. I hope we thank them for making the University of Liberia prepared to give me the degree I received. My heart go on out to Cornell. But how many people read that? That the Cornell University, through a grant from the USAID between 1960 to 1961, conducted a study after the university, after the Liberian government was sending students abroad who were not qualified. Mitchell has come to the United States to visit the universities that were hosting Liberian students. And in California, a dean said, you cannot bring people who are not prepared, who are not even high school graduates, to come and do graduate education. It's a waste of resources. You said approach Cornell University. Go ahead, Liberia. Among other things, Cornell created a 4-year program in 1963 at the University of Liberia. They set up admission protocols to create the viability of the university so that it trains intellectuals. And that you will only send those who have come from graduated from the university abroad for graduate studies, or people who have come for technical knowledge from businesses, the Firestone, Lamb, you can send them to abroad, but they must go through the University of Liberia.
Yes.
Tubman accepted it. But when Mitchell returned and said, this is what the University of California said, this student who had, Tubman said, no, I got a solution. Cornell can't tell what to do.
Okay, this is what I'm talking about.
We are a country of independent country. If you take instruction from Cornell, I'll fire you. We will appoint a liaison officer in the U.S. in the Liberian embassy in Washington, D.C. All the students who are not graduated from high school will attend high school in the United States.
Yep.
Then they do bachelor degree. Then they do master. Then they come home. They started clapping for Tubman. The school was prepared to accommodate based on the Cornell report, copy of which I have. It was supposed to accommodate 2,500 students in the what they call it new University of Liberia campus. They only accommodated 800 people. Tubman said, we can't educate them so much. Education is not for them. Because they failed. Because most of them they brought here. They failed. For example, Emma Hammer dropped out of Harvard University. And his father wrote, a nephew of Tubman, tell Emma Hammer to come back home. The little study he got at Harvard, he can run my law firm. When Hammer returned, he became economic advisor to Tubman, a college dropout. A college dropout. So If you look at what they get in education in Sino, the students, the native students, were excelling. They were studying, burning the mill in their candles on the third regime. The Minister of Education never visited the interior. If he did, there was something else. When they saw the Minister of War, the Secretary of War, the superintendent, the minister, I call it the superintendent of the supervisor of schools, reported and said in Sino, the Buto area, the Sanquin area have no schools. But what we see here is that the natives are increasing in their knowledge and size. And they're increasing. So the minister of I said, okay, I understand you. You know what I'm going to do? Start promotion for 5 years for the natives. So assume you are in Sano High School in 1960. You will not graduate until 1985 to get to get a 10th grade because you can't get promotion. The year end is here, you know, say your grade, you did well, but you didn't pass for 5 years. Yeah. Because the kids felt their parents were rich. Then how did we get in the same book? How did we get a double promotion? In the rural area, they recruited Nigerians and Sierra Leoneans. The non-qualified one. Ghanaians have intellectuals. But the one they brought to Liberia, in Grandview, in Maryland, in Webo, were illiterate. When I told where people from fifth grade, they come to teach high school or junior high school. So because they were limited, they came with their books. The infant reader we saw when we were young.
Yeah.
They brought books with them. They brought their notebooks.
Yeah.
So when they enter the classroom, because the teacher was limited, when a child is in the first grade, they promote to the 3rd grade because there are no 2nd grade teacher. So when you reach 4th grade, then they say, you know what, Kai, you are so qualified, go be a clerk to a chief. You don't need to go to college or go to teacher college, go to Zozo and come back. So that's how they did the educational policy. So you see the disparity. So they use education as a weapon. To illiteracy as a weapon.
And not only education, you know, I mean, I'm reading your book about, you know, the elites buying, well, not even buying land, but just like paying $1 an acre, getting 50 acres, or not even that, talking about just signing a paper and you going and giving a woman 25 acres of land. This is the scene, this 25 acres of land or 10 acres, right in the heart of Monrovia, now it's worth millions. So her children, her descendants are enjoying rent. You know, I've always wondered, like, okay, so your parents got this land through talking just signing a paper, and now for the rest of your life and your children's lives and their children's, you will be getting a rent, sometimes from the government, but you'll be getting rent by selling this land or by renting this land. So the cycle is a cycle that just continues, you know. So in perpetuity, you've gotten a wealth
and
by dispossessing other people.
Yeah. And you are right, Jackie. And the thing about it is that these people, we need to understand, came out of a capitalistic climate, a capitalistic culture, where they knew that land, labor, and capital happen to have been the 3 major legs on which economic activities thrive. And therefore, they brought the same thing to the African coast, where if you had land, it means, just as you said, you had property in perpetuity. What you did with the land, what came off the land, belonged to you and only you, since it was something about private ownership instead of communal ownership. So those things were practiced in America, taken to Liberia, and that was forced on, the activities were forced on the indigenous people, who sadly did not have any power to resist. Whatever power they had, yes, at 1 or 2 times they did resist, but every time it was often the edge were laid on them, which was each time they wanted to close the mouths of the indigenous people, they would talk about the fact that they were trying to practice slavery, and therefore they went out there to what? To kind of curb slavery in their quarters and what have you. Sadly, so many things had gone on. the sense of entitlement, the sense of insensitivity, and all those things brought together. And that's part of what Kai has kind of expressed in his book. That's part of, again, what Bregman discussed in The Empire of Rubber. That's partly what Paul Gifford did discuss in his book. Sadly enough, there has to be a new sense of consciousness. There has to be a cadre of young people who, believing in the power of the land, will try as much as possible to practice a sense of integrity to be able to make a new future possible in Liberia. A new future that is going to include everybody as opposed to excluding other people.
And Mr. Wleh, one of the things I would like to jump in before you make your comments. One of the things I guess that is very apparent in your book. I just opened it to read about the Diamond Jubilee, where Tubman was trying to get every person who had a little hut to pay $5 to his Diamond Jubilee. But I guess one of the things I got from this book, I guess I've always known it, but reading this book is that, it's a warning and a typical example of what happens when institutions fail. Because like dominoes, if the legislative or the religious organization has stood up, like Tuan Red did, right? Like Frederick did, like other people did, but they just kowtow to this man. They just, for you to to say that Famule, right? To convict him of treason, when there's no evidence, nothing says that he committed treason, but the courts convicted him just on hearsay. All of these institutions, it's not just Tubman. All of these institutions colluded to make this president do what he was doing, because you cannot lead a country that's empty. If a country stands up and say, no, we are not going to do this, it will not happen. But I guess reading this book is a warning. But I kept saying, but Mr. Wleh is listing the people who resisted, but there are not many. There's only one or two, and then you have friends lying on friends for money. So nothing has changed. I guess my question to you is, after writing this book, how hopeful are you about our country?
I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful, like when I saw Professor Nagbe at the university with about 3 books on his arm. He had a master, he was going to law school. He was still here enjoying himself. Edward Wleh Wilson. They all taught me. We can't give up. Like I said in the conclusion of the book, the new consciousness will require us not to be when I wrote a book, friends said, you will not have friends. I want to talk the truth. That's an academic work. We must follow the path. Party more gone. Dr. Guanu just left us. Dr. Sawyer just left us. Professor Wilton Sankwago left us. So what are we waiting for the change to come? That the land act, for example, Tubman gave himself 8,100 acres of land. And he owned the largest rubber plantation in Liberia. And was receiving not less than $39,000 per month for each of his 3 farms. He was the highest businessman who was selling rubber to Firestone. So you say, why other institutions did not come in? Tubman was the institution. They deified him. He was using the executive mansion with Mayor Palmo. And I'm talking about documents I have in my possession. The executive secretary to the president was sending Firestone letter, we just deliver rubber to you, send us a check. And Firestone was $39,000 check for January for Kavala farm, $50,000 for Salada farm, $170,000 for the other farm. The lady was working in the president's office. But while that lady was doing that, in the same book, Tubman has security on this lady to determine who she speaks with, who she interacts with. when her husband came from the United States with their son. Told me have 10 security officers at the airport
Mr.
to
Wleh,
make sure that they made Padmo, who is the
Mr. Wleh,
secretary and at the same time a business attaché for Tubman with Firestone, does not talk to anybody.
when I read your book, I went to his papers and I was reading the letters that she used to write to him, and I said, "Oh,
Yes." So there were letters that were said, "Your Excellency, the president wanted money." But the difficult thing on all the 3 farms, Tubman was making a total of between $150,000 to $200,000 a month. All the employees were getting $100 a month. All of them. And the employees will take their money in advance. Get salt, get pepper, get tomato, get what they don't need. So by the time payday comes, they have nothing to take home. So even the opposition will talk about the media. They up to this point, the 1925 Act that make criticizing government official a felony is still on the book. Does that act sent Wleh to jail? Wleh, when the crime was to write a document saying, Mr. President, because Wleh has challenged the House of Representatives. Because he said they criticized Barkley, who was the Senate bearer. Wleh insulted him, the court said special session, and Wleh wrote an editorial, independent. They invited Wleh and charged him with violating the 1925 Act that was created by both Barkley and then expanded upon by Tubman. That act is on the book today. Editor Richardson, when they banned his paper, the Independent, he said, "I will not beg Tubman." Wleh said, "I will not beg Tubman." They made him to clean feces.
yes, yes."
And they made the crew people angry. That's what Wleh basically made the crew people angry. Again, then a reflection of the execution of Chief Satra Crew in 1910 by Samuel Ross from Sino, who later who after whom who was then postmaster general at the time. When they met to death, because the Saquon people, the Greenville people, the Southtown people who oppose taxation. We can pay taxes to a government that does not represent us. They say, who their leader? It says Satra Crew. Those days they name you after your tribe. My uncle was David Basso, because you are the Basso chief. To make you to feel inferior, they name you after the tribe. They put him alive. And the rest of the folks ran into the villages and towns. So there were those who were strong. But the people who were strong were not too strong, but were more say. I'm hopeful because show the light. We will follow. Professor Sawyer told us we are chief-oriented people who follow the detail of our leaders. If we are able to develop the leadership in each of us through the awareness that people like Dr. Nagbe provided us. So almost 20, 30 years ago, I left LU 1986, 87. I still remember that. So when you teach, there are people you teach in. That means you think they will not remember, but there are those who will carry the torch. We, the young generation who are now going, must never be afraid to engage in academic research. Because the country, the change we want has come. The democracy we fought for has come. But because we do not read, we are not aware. So we are repeating what happened in 1955 in 2003. We had conventions, but we did not elect representatives and senators on our tickets. Opposition did not elect anyone besides the Senate Bureau. They did that in 1955.
Yeah.
In time for elections, Abba Bede, who was the campaign manager for the opposition, he defected to Tubman and said all the names I brought, they are fake names. So they banned the political party for putting forward fake names.
Nothing has changed. Okay,
So
nothing
has changed.
There are some questions for you here. I guess for you, let me just Stanley say he's watching. Hi, Stanley. Franklin Weller says he's watching from Baltimore. Hi, Frank. Chipley, thanks for the show. Thank you, Chipley. Okay, so yes, a question. Oh, Tilly Brown wants, now he's putting you in a hot seat, Prof. Nagbe. How do you reconcile this book to your past expression that too much liberty leads to anarchy? You may have said that during the Doe administration or so.
No, you say too much liberty leads to anarchy.
Yeah.
Liberty by itself is destructive. I understand that. Liberty by itself is destructive. Liberty must be guided. The point I made at that time was that if people go on to liberty for the sake of going on to it without the ready preparedness to do that, then of course that liberty will lead to destruction. So that is the point we must understand. How do we guide the freedom? That reminds me of Booker T. Washington, his Up From Slavery book. His Up From Slavery book talked about the moment at which the proclamation by Lincoln was made. When that proclamation was made, because people were not fully aware of how to kind of approach liberty or freedom and enjoy it, they virtually were left unguided. And that is part of also when you talk about the 1980 coup in Liberia, people at some point were not ready mentally, I'm talking about mentally, were not ready mentally to get into that rhythm of freedom. Many of them destroyed themselves in the process. So yes, it remains what I'm saying today that one is reminding me of, that too much liberty leads to anarchy. In other words, liberty unguided is not a safe type of liberty. That's what the point I was making, Tilly.
Okay, Chebo has one for Mr. Wleh. How has Tubman's imperial presidency and autocracy damaged Liberia? Well, I think Mr. Wleh has answered that, but do you want to add more?
Yes, let me say it. It undermines our educational system. When you send someone who is not a high school graduate to Columbia University to do graduate studies, when you tell the ladies who are on a scholarship, you did not put that in writing. They came on scholarship and they found their love. They want to socialize with somebody else. And because the lady decided to marry or socialize with a non-Liberian, you deport her. No explanation. You don't go back to school. Go back. So the imperial president said, make Tubman everything. People worship him. If you read the book, on his birthday, every hut, not house, hut, will have to pay $5. Not house, pay $5 to Tubman. Like I indicated, Tubman was president. But he was receiving between $35,000 to $40,000 a month from each of his 4 farms from Firestone. That money was not going to government revenue. The document in my possession, Tubman did not pay taxes. The end of the money he earned. He made himself to tell the pastors what to preach in the church. In the Masonic temple, he was asking ambassadors to pay $20,000. He made himself the deity of everything. One guy was in a warehouse, and he wanted to be a tax collector. So he applied. When Tubman heard it, that is guy in Kepamos, who was a warehouse guardman at the port of Harper, has applied to Monrovia to work at the Internal Revenue Services. Tubman fired him. Tubman fired a guy. He fired teachers. So everything was him. Everything was him. He was interfering. If you look at the trial of Ebuema Formula Senior, he was involved in a trial. He was involved. The decisions were made. Those who were jurors had participated in a demonstration sponsored by the TWP. When Formula said, you can't have people that will not be neutral, he said, go to Tubman. The judge said, even when they have Peter Amos George, he was a defense counsel. He said he would not want to represent Abraham Formula Senior. Tubman told him if he does not represent Abraham Formula Senior to be convicted, he will not practice law in Liberia anymore. I got the documents, and he complied. So he was in marriages. You could not leave your wife, you will be fired. You could not leave your wife. You say, I don't want my wife to say, okay, your wife, carry a complaint, you are fired.
And also, and don't forget, Mr. Wleh, we had, and there are also letters where when the husband would travel, the husband would take the wife. I mean, just so many things,
so,
you know.
If I traveled as a government official, Tubman will invite my wife on a yacht, and my wife refuses, I lose my job and go to jail for planning a coup. If my Tubman told me to marry to somebody and I said no, I was in a coup. So he controls the security apparatus. These are documents, presidential papers. And
your book is very well documented. The source materials are all there. So you please buy the book. Chebo says, what can you tell us about Bertha Cubbins, the African-American journalist that Tubman deported?
Yes, this is what happened. The journalist has gone to Liberia. The journalist did some reporting that some of us will do. But she was linked to a church. And they used the church to exclude her. Because Tubman felt they reported in the Western media. Because Tubman owned the daily listeners. He owned all the papers in the country. So when the reporting was coming out, they traced the reporting that what we did in the Dole regime, they were falsely accusing Rufus Dapo of writing all the stories against Dole. No evidence. So when the information came out about Tubman extramarital affairs, his first wife has left him, and they were in court. And they surprised the case, but the case evaporated. Then they later also brought in the issue of Tubman's wealth. How can a president run his business in his own office? What is transparency? Tubman felt that the lady had discussed this with a church member, and that the lady must leave. With the advice of a counsel in Monrovia, they facilitated that she would retry the statement when she came to the United States. She did not retry it. She wanted to leave the country. It was better for her to do so. Because both the church, her host, and all those in government were saying, you now want to portray Tubman that he's corrupt. And almost what happened to the student leaders when they were tried. And one of the student leaders came and said, Tubman is not a good man, he's corrupt. He put John Never in jail because he belonged to the Liberian Liberation Movement. He harassed Wleh Appleton and put him in jail. They are socialists. They are not. A friend who was security officers reported this guy to Tubman. Tubman instructed the guy received the highest treatment in Liberia. That documented. So it was everything. The only people that opposed Tubman were the Kru people. They opposed Tubman, including Detour. They opposed Tubman. And those who opposed Tubman also included our friends in Nima. Because the Tubman rule, when he called the town hall meetings, called visiting chief meetings, they brought their grievances. They stopped the people from Lokatuo from coming to Tapeta, people from Bople from coming to Ganta, people from Ganta from going to Saniquidi, from going to Tapeta. So they told Tubman, you said we got freedom. Why we can travel? We'll break your travel ban. Commissioner Hammond, then in Nima, say anybody who breaks the ban will be killed. They revoke against Tubman. Tubman withdrew. They said, okay, you guys can travel, but it must be limited. So he controlled the chief he appointed. He granted it. This guy bought a gun. The guy bought a gun in Harper and killed Wleh by error, trying to demonstrate a gun. The guy died. So Chief Saul, who was acting as commissioner, said, "You can go." That mistake. When Tubman came, not only did he reverse the decision, he told the man he would not own gun for 5 years. He would not even go to anywhere that there's a gun. Even though he acknowledged what the guy did was by error. And the same thing happened with a member of the armed forces, Frontier Force. He has gone to Grand Gila County. During a ceremony, he shot one gay from Aricos, a very crime. When the case came for Tubman said it was because the town gave the soldier too much food. So the town was guilty. And each of the people in the town would pay $10 to bury Gay and satisfy his family. So he was in everything. Yeah. Marriages. He was the time who goes on scholarship. He was the time who goes to join government. He was in the churches. He was in the Masonic Temple. He was the Grand Master. So he was an imperial president, but we created the imperial presidency that we're doing today because of our lack of awareness. If we are aware, like in the Tubman regime, we will not have accepted PRO for $5 a month to report our brothers and sisters to keep Tubman in power. After he gave us the $5 after election, he doesn't call you anymore. The same way we're doing right now. So when we increase our awareness, what the book is about is to create our awareness so that we build a new Liberia that is founded on the principle of love for liberty for all. I'm not dividing Liberia. They are when you go to a hospital in the United States and you get sick, you go to a physician or anywhere you go in the world, the physician diagnoses you and provides a prescription. This is what works with other people with the similar illnesses. So I think it can work as well. We are backward because we are afraid to engage in research and to meet our reality. But it is important because history is our past. We can't change it. I tell folks, I mean, in the United States, I speak Kron, I speak part of Gio, I speak part of Loma, I'm now learning Pele well, I speak Kru. So when I speak Sapo, I go to Sapo program, or you can speak Sapo, I'm a country boy from the village. But the new awakeness must tell us our love for Liberia. We love Tubman. When Tubman died, my dad felt Tubman would not have died. When Tubman died, my brother Sylvester turned on the radio. He said Tubman died. My father threw the radio away because you're part of the Masonic Temple. Who tell that Tubman can die?
Prof, there's another question for you. Yeah. No, I'm talking to Mr. Wleh. There's a question from Tilly Brown, said the Kolas and the other tribes that didn't, according to you, oppose Tubman. Is it because Tubman had suppressed them during the plot that failed?
No, it's not true. If you read the book.
Okay, so don't explain it. Don't explain it. Buy the book.
Yeah, buy the book.
Tilly Brown, and then you will get the. Mr. Wleh is not going to explain to you. Please buy the book.
The question here is that all of the tribes opposed. The Sayegh, they were the first group, but the crew led. That it was in 1920 to 21. Sapo put to war. The Nima rebellion, the Kisi rebellion, the Pele rebellion, all in the book. I did not say anybody excluded themselves, but I said the crew led because they had a larger territory from Kipamas to then River Says, was called crew territory. But they were the warriors because they had access to the sea. They were militant.
Yeah.
But other folks rejected. Even in Sarala, when they were setting the land, people demonstrated. So nobody was standing there to say, I'm not going to be part of it. And not in our boat to say, Gisi or Perepo did not take part. Even the people in Kelma and the people in Bombay County now, when they were coming to Monroe, they had to bring passport. Read the book. Because Tubman said they were Sierra-Leoneans.
Yeah.
So when you are coming from read the book. When you are coming from Kelma to Monrovia, you will produce a passport. If you are coming from Grand Gila to Monrovia, you must produce a passport because you are from where? Aricos. If you are coming from a Lofa to come to Monrovia, when they suspect you, you must bring passport because you are from Guinea. If a crewman was coming in, they said, no, it's a seafarer, he's from Ghana. You must bring passport. So everyone under the Tubman regime suffered. So there was no one that said in that book, there's no one that made mention in that book that people were, I know certain people were apologetic to Tubman for their own riches. But it's not a tribe that I named in there. There were individuals I named. But I want to say, single-handedly, it was the crew people that led the revolt from 1869. It were the crew people. Then that was followed by the Sapo, the Putu, then the Gisi, the Bele. So all of them, who in Soin? The Gola people in Soin. The Soin. So it's not correct. Read the book, you will see the difference.
Mr. Wleh, I want to really thank you for this book. I mean, Prof and I, we do a little bit of history, but it's very exhaustive. You know, there are a lot of things in this book, and then you go to the back and you find all of the sources. Like I was saying to you, I went and found some letters, and Prof and I were reading the letters laughing. And you know the letters I'm talking about. But this book really, really, you know, I mean, the Lands Act, the settler indigenous divide, what divided them, how Tubman Tubman fingers were in every pie, you know. And it's also a warning, you know. It's like 1984, George Orwell. It's saying that, look, these things happen, let them not happen again. And like I said, unfortunately, we see half of these things. I was reading about Famula and I was like, but there's nothing new. Friends lying on you, and the judiciary finding you guilty even when you're innocent. There's nothing new. So it is a warning manual as well. I thank you very much for writing this book. I mean, I read the book. As you can see, there's markings all in the book because I was just marking and I was like, whoa, Prof, did you see this? Did you see this? And Prof and I went back and forth. Like I said, it's today is not an exhaustive discussion because there are so many things in this book we want to discuss. We want to give our audience chance to buy the book, to read the book, and we invite you to come back on so we have 46 viewers right now on Facebook. Not Facebook, yeah, I guess on StreamYard. So Facebook. So we know that there are a lot of you who will watch this later, who will learn a little bit about your history and want to buy this book. It's on Amazon. Is like $20, the price of a little meal. You can buy this book. You know, please buy the book and then come back. You know, we will bring Mr. Wleh back, and then you come and say, you know what? Can you just bring me on? Let me ask Mr. Wleh a question so you can discuss the book with him. We always say the literary hour, Prof and I, is that we invite you to come on, but read the book first. Don't come and start asking questions, very elementary questions that show that you haven't read the book. So Chebo said the Grebels too defeated the frontier forces and resisted the suppressor. Yay!
Yeah, that let me add that. That's true. If you read the book, you will see how the Grebels, the Grebel chiefs, led to the discussion of what in the book called the Chester Commission on forced labor.
Yeah,
forced labor in Maryland.
But Mr. Wleh, you know, one of my heroes is Chief Wleh. Chief Wleh. Yes. Chief Wleh is my hero, and Prof and I, we always go back with that song, that Chief Wleh song, you know. And I say one day when I get to Maryland, I mean to Okipama, I want to meet his you know, the descendants of Chief Wleh, because that man was a very brave man. But somebody, and we will show the last comment. Joseph said Tubman was afraid of the crew and Tiempo people because of their brave fighting in Sastan War.
Yeah, that's true, because what Tubman did, Tubman was a lawyer for the Grebel and the crew people. So even the chief you just talked about, Tubman was a poor man lawyer. Well, I will work things out with Yancey. Yancey was vice president. He was Tubman's man.
Yes.
So they believe in Tubman. He was close to them. But then he betrayed them.
Yes.
After the chief decided to testify against Barkley during the tested Fernando crisis, Tubman fled.
Yeah.
And then they destroyed Grable towns.
Yeah,
where the crew.
Yancey helped.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when the chief ran to Kakata to tell CDB King and said, "This is what the people doing in our towns in Webo area," CDB King said, "You are fired." So when he went by, people said, "You are not fired." So you saw the fine in the book. The chief were paying fines to Tubman and Yancey. So it was a holistic war.
Yes.
But the crew, they had access to the sea because they were getting support from the British government. The British government said, "We can't sit here, you kill the crew people," because they were friendly with the British, because they are seafarers. So they're getting weapons. But when the World War broke up, with the British coming in, with Germany, the crew lost their support. So most of them ran to Sierra Leone on their ships, on their boats. Most of them ran to Ghana. But this book is a book for all Liberians, for all young people, for all old people. And I'm grateful for those who have taken your time to read it. Prof, I'm grateful to both of you. I'm always available. I'm very grateful.
Yes,
because I believe we can change Liberia. We can change Liberia. Our country is a country that is in transition. But we must recognize those who came before us. Like I recognize Professor Nagbe tonight. He may not know that I plan to say this because I saw Prof coming in with Wleh with their masters. And we are just getting to the University of Liberia. These young guys are coming in. And Prof will show you. He will demonstrate when he's teaching that you want to be part of that class. He's not only teaching you. He will demonstrate. So some of us begin to see the contradictions between being informed, being aware, and being an armchair professor. Because for me, I want to create an awareness. We talk too much, but we must show that what we write is quality. And I'm proud of both of you.
Yeah, this is a good
You
book.
saved me because you have reviewed my work product. And I know Prof is proud to say, this is my student. He came through my walls. This is the generation I want to develop.
We are
not
both,
to destroy those who help us to reach to where we are.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to all my friends who are reading this book. They reach out, let people read. Because when we create that, the one thing that Prof said that I take with me tonight, we want to write books written by Liberians about Liberia, who understand the Liberian culture and the Liberian way of life. In the 22nd century, we can't be importing professors and intellectuals. It is only today, about 2 days ago, that the Commissioner of Higher Education is now requesting every university in Liberia to have a president with a doctorate degree on, not honorary degree.
Yes, and that's one of the things. I'll put a plug for Cornell. Cornell does not give honorary degrees.
You see, so we're moving somewhere. Even though they gave these schools all the certificate and licenses, they said no, we back off. So I think there's a sense of awareness.
Yeah,
that little group that were opposing Tubman, were opposing Barkley, opposing the slave trade, that group to make us to be here today.
Yeah, but Prof, don't forget, like Prof always says, Mr. Wleh, also, even though we have Liberians writing books, you yourself in your book question Doris Banks Henry's and things, because history needs to be authenticated.
Yes.
So, and sometimes when Liberians are writing books, they have their own agenda, you know. So that's another thing. But that's for another day. I know that I know that we are going we're going into the next show, because I think Focus on Liberia has a show at 8. But we want to extend an invitation to you, Mr. Wleh. So please come back on our show. We'll give the viewers time to read the book, you know, and maybe we can have more time. We could go on and on, because I have so many questions for you, you know, and I have so many things I need clarity on. But as I said, you know, that Focus on Liberia has these slots that we filled, and we have another show coming. But again, we want to thank you, and we want to give our teacher, our professor of Nagbe, both chance to give us some comments before we start to close.
Well, I think again, you know, Jackie, when we are on this show, we let people know that it is very much important to think, not just to think, but to think critically. I see one or two of the viewers uh, plug into sound bites. It's very important to understand the background of statements people offer. It's very much important for people to rekindle what people say or what people do, so that when they are engaging such people, they know precisely what to say and how to say it. This book, plus the one or two other books I talked about, the Gifford book and the Gregman book, they are a pantheon of the kind of literature that people need to understand to know precisely some of the things that have gone on in the Republic of Liberia. And again, to make sure that people who are digging into this history are not digging into the history for mischief,
Mhm.
but they are digging into that history to make sure that people understand thoroughly what went on and what ought not to go on again, so that Liberia will kind of pull out of the quandary of depression, the quandary of humiliation, and move on to a place where Liberia can really, truly be proud of its own achievements moving forward. So Kai did well, and I hope that he will become an inspiration too at his generational level, and see where all of us go from here.
Thank you very much, Prof. I'm grateful, and I want to be grateful to my agent, Ben Weller. He's watching because he arranged this interview, and
Yes,
so I'm available at all times, and I'm available to discuss this book and other things on Liberia. We have an obligation to create awareness, like I indicated in the last chapter. We must create a national awareness, a new intellectual understanding of what makes Liberia Liberia, so that collectively the loss, last chapter, the book starts with the tragedy of slavery, but end up with from the loss of liberty to the love of liberty for all. So we can achieve that, and I know we can achieve that. I have faith in Liberia. I still believe in Liberia. I live Liberia. I never give on Liberia. Thank you so much, Prof, for your work for Liberia. And thank you, Jackie, and all that you do for the Cornell University.
yes,
I hope the folks will go back and read a report from Cornell on the University of Liberia, and they will
Yes,
build on it. Let them read a book so that people will build on what has happened at the university, so that university become a cradle of the academic setting that we talk about, the light in darkness. But I'm proud with the education I received from the Catholic Church through the Catholic school, and my education and awareness that I received at the University of Liberia, and the opportunity a lot of people give me to come from office board to become executive directors in telecommunications, and my role in the media, and my friends in the African style, and our young friend, Dennis, for this forum, for all of you. I'm grateful, and for all those who are watching and those who will watch later, please buy the book so that we can have a civic discussion. Thank you
yes.
so much,
Thank you so much,
and have a
Mr.
nice
Wleh.
day.
And when I came to Cornell, I met Dr. Mary Antoinette Brown Sherman, and she was my mentor. She also graduated from Cornell, and she taught at Cornell for many years before moving on. So Cornell has a proud academic history with Liberia, and I'm very happy for that. So we want to thank all of you for joining us again. We know that Friday night is a busy night for some people, but we thank you for joining us. We ask you to please share the show to other people so that they can learn about our history, they can buy the book, and they can join the discussion. And as always, we say enjoy the weekend, be safe, and whether you are from the settlers or the indigenous, as Prof and I always say, whether you are for Tubman or against Tubman, whether you are part of the resistance, whether you are from Sim or you are from Soup, we are all Liberians. And we will, as Mr. Wleh said, we will persevere and we will uplift our country. As we always say, no country is 100% bad and no country is 100% good. So lift Liberia up. So thank you and good night.
Thank you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home.